geometry. Let's talk law of cosines. So law of cosines is what you're going to use when you're given two sides and the included angle, side angle, side, or you're given three sides, side, side, side. You might remember that we use the law of sines. We used the law of sines when we had two angles in our last set of notes. So let's take a look at this law of cosines. So as far as memorizing this, notice that side A has cosine of angle A. Notice that side B has cosine of angle B. Notice that side C has cosine of angle C. So one of the ways to help you, and then it's just the square of the other two sides minus 2 times the other two sides. So that might help you be able to memorize these and get it straight. Or if you can memorize one of them, you can usually then piece together the other two if you can write one down on your paper. So let's take a look at how to try these. The first two cases we're going to look at is, I thought I was on highlighter, is side angle side. So you'll notice that we have a side, and we have the angle in between them. So whenever we have that situation, we're going to pick, of the three equations for a law of cosines, we're going to pick the one to solve for the side we don't know. In other words, of course, we want to use the one angle we do know. So in this case, I'm going to use that c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine of capital C. I'm obviously going to use that one because notice that's the little angle I don't know across from the one and only one angle I do know. So that's the angle I have to use. So I've got to pick cosine of C. So I need to use that equation. So let's start substituting everything in. So c squared equals 42 squared plus 25 squared minus 2 times 42 times 25 times cosine, see if I can fit it in here, of 132, just barely. So be careful when you put this into your calculator. You should be getting, if you're keying it incorrectly, c squared equals approximately 3,904.174273. I normally don't write down this step. I just go ahead and on my calculator do the square root. I just wanted to make sure that you were getting the right number when you typed all that in. And so my C is equal to 61.59. So we know our side C. Sorry, that's a little messy right there. 61.59. So now to go find A or B, you got to pick one. It doesn't matter which one. And we're going to go back to the law of sines. So we're going to go back to our law of sines from the last lesson. And you're going to pick to find either A or B. I'm going to go ahead and find B. So side B is 25. I'm going to put that over sine of capital B. That's my variable right there, you guys. I'm going to be solving for that capital B equals 61.59 I just found over sine of that 132. Now, as far as the algebra goes, I normally just do it all in one step. And I'll talk a little bit more about what I'm doing in just a second. But that sine B is in the denominator on the left side. So I'm going to multiply both sides by it so I can get sine B in the numerator. And then that 25 is over here on the left side, still in the numerator. I'm going to multiply that sine 132 up and out of the denominator to the other side. And I'm going to be dividing that 61.59 over. And I normally just do all that work all at once. But let's look at that in slow motion. I'm going to erase this when we're done looking at it. But this is what I had, and my variable was in the denominator. And you might remember that that is bad news. So I need to multiply it up and out of the denominator. So I'm going to multiply both sides by that sine of b. When I do that, my sine of b is finally in the numerator, but I've got that 61.59 times sine of b. So I'm going to divide both sides by 61.59 so I can move it over. So over here, I want to be dividing by 61.59. And now I've got sine of 132 in the denominator. So I'm going to multiply both sides by sine of 132. Multiply this side by the sine of 132 to get it to cancel. You'll notice that doing that thinking, the only thing I have over here is my sine of b, which I'm trying to solve for. You'll notice on the other side, my numerator is 25 times the sine of 132. It had been in the denominator on the right. It's now in the numerator on the left. Divided by 61.59. It had been the numerator on the right. It's now in the denominator on the left. This is important that I understand where all these parts came from. I'm going to erase this for the time being. So now I need to solve for b. You might remember if I need to cancel sine, I'm going to do sine inverse. But what I do to one side, I have to do the other side. So when I do sine inverse, I just get my capital B equals. Now I'm going to very carefully on my calculator do the 25 times sine of 132. And then I'm going to divide by 61.59. And I normally don't write this part, but I just want to make sure you're following okay with your calculators. I got like 0.3016499954. So I hope that's what you have on your calculator as well. And then I'm going to do sine inverse of that number. And when I do that, I'm getting around 17.55. B equals 17.5 or 56 if I round. 17.56 degrees. So again, I normally wouldn't write down the 0.301, that part of it. I just want to make sure you're getting the same number on your calculator. And to find angle A, it's easy. I'm going to do 180 minus my 17.56 minus my 132. And I get 30.44 for angle A. So let's try this all over again, shall we? So on this problem, again, let's remember how we start out. We start out by identifying the angle that we know and the side that we don't know that's across from it. So I know when I look at those three equations above, I want to use the equation where I'm solving for side A. So I'm going to use the equation A equals, equals b squared plus c squared, the other two sides, minus 2bc, the other two sides, times cosine of A, which is the angle I know. So a squared equals 13 squared plus 15 squared minus 2 times 13 times 15 times cosine of 42.3. So be careful how you guys put that into your calculators. Give it a try and see if you don't get approximately 10.3. Pause this video if you need to try it again, and if you're having some trouble, come to bring your calculator to me and let me see how you're punching it in. So now that I've used my law of cosines once, I now can use my law of sines. This is when I'm going to flip it back to my law of sines, and I have the option. I could solve for either angle C or B. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go for angle C. So you'll notice angle C has 15, the side C is 15 centimeters across from it. So 15 over sine of C equals this new 10.3 I just found over sine of 42.3. So now again, what I was trying to talk us through last time is my variable is down here in the denominator. I need to multiply both sides by this to get it up into the numerator. So that means my sine C will be on the other side when I multiply it over. I still have a 15 here. And my sine 42.3, I'm going to multiply both sides by it to move it to the left side. And my 10.3, I'm going to divide both sides by it to move it away. And I get this fraction equal to sine C. And now I'm going to do sine inverse of both sides because sine inverse cancels sine. And I'm going to very carefully put all of those numbers into my calculator, and I get 78.6 degrees. And then I'm going to do 180 minus 78.6 minus 42.3, and I'm going to get approximately 59.1 degrees for angle B. So those were side angle side cases. What about the other time we use law of cosines? And that's for side problems. So let's take a look at what that looks like. First of all, let's put in our measures. Again, these triangles aren't drawn to scale. This is a random general triangle that is showing side A across from angle A, side B across from angle B, side C across from angle C. This is just to make sure that we use the right numbers in the right places in our formulas. But obviously when I put my 11 for A, my 6 for B, and my 9 for C, it's not making a lot of sense as far as being drawn to scale. So I have a dilemma here. I have a problem. I'm given 3 sides, but I'm not given any angles. So when you have this case, you need to start with the largest angle. And the largest angle is across from the largest side. So even though it doesn't look like it, my largest side in this problem is the 11. It's side A. So when I pick my formula, I'm going to pick my formula where I'm doing the cosine of my angle A. I'm going to start with the largest angle, which is always across from my largest side. This is to make sure when I'm doing to avoid the ambiguous case when I'm changing to my law of sines, which is something you're going to learn more about next year. So if that's the case, then I know I need to start with my A squared equals, it's going to equal my other two sides squared minus 2 times my other two sides times cosine of A. So let's start putting in information here. I get 11 squared equals 6 squared plus 9 squared minus 2 times 6 times 9 times cosine of A. So on the second problem, I'll show you how I solve these. I really only do my math one time. However, let's do some baby steps here. 11 squared is 121. 6 squared is 36. 9 squared is 81. 2 times 6 is 12. Times my 9 is 108. Times cosine of A. Now remember what I'm solving here. I'm solving for cosine of A. So I want to get cosine of A by itself. So I'm going to first subtract 36 from both sides. I'm going to subtract 81 from both sides. When I do that, I get 121 minus 36 minus 81, and I'm getting 4 equals negative 108 cosine of A. And now I'm going to divide both sides by this negative 108 to get the cosine of A by itself, divided by my 108. And I get a really long decimal on my calculator. It's negative 0.0370. I'm not going to leave any of these numbers because normally I do this all at once on my calculator, so I don't want to leave any decimals. So now we know if I want to cancel cosine I have to do cosine inverse to do that. So I'm going to do cosine inverse to both sides. And when you do that, we get 92.12 for A. So 92.12 degrees for A. 92.12 degrees for A. Now at this time, I normally would switch to the law of sines to go find B or C. And you would just set up your proportion and you would just solve for your missing one. But why don't we try setting up this law of cosines again and solving for the angle. So in this case, I'm going to do B. So I'm going to use the equation where B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2 times A times C times cosine of capital B. So, and this is much, I would totally use the law of sines. So when we do the next problem, we'll switch to the law of sines. But for right now, I just want to do another problem where we do all this algebra with law of cosines. So this is 6 squared equals 11 squared plus 9 squared minus 2 times 11 times 9 times cosine of B. There are lots of ways to do your algebra here. You could do it like literally all at once, bringing it all over, doing cosine inverse only one time. You can do parts. You could do every single step like I did with you last time. It's really personal preference, but I do need to subtract that 11 squared over. I do need to subtract that 9 squared over. I do need to divide by negative 2 times 11 times 9. Well, that equals, I'll go ahead and just, that's 22 times 9. That's negative 198 cosine B. So I'm going to divide that negative 198 over to get it to cancel. And so this is equal to cosine of B. And I know that to get B by itself, I have to do cosine inverse of both sides. And cosine inverse cancels cosine, and I would just have a B. And what I do the left side, I do the right side. So I'm going to do cosine inverse of this. So now my job is just to really put that into my calculator carefully. So I'm going to do 36 minus 121 minus 81. I'm using a classroom calculator right now, so I'm going to hit equals and divide by that 198, which is also negative. So if you were using a classroom calculator with me, I normally wouldn't write this right now, but I want to make sure that we're getting the same numbers. I'm getting 0.8383, basically 83 repeating. And I'm going to do cosine inverse on that. And when I do that, I get 33.03 for B. So I now have two of my angles. I'm going to find my third angle just by subtracting from 180. And I get 54.85 degrees. So let's take a look at another side problem. So on this problem, my side A is 9.47, my side B is 15.9, and my side C is 21.1. And I told you to start with the largest angle, which is across from the largest side. So my largest side is the 21. So it looks like I'm going to start with C. So I'm going to use the equation for C, which is C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2 times A times B times cosine of C. So that's 21.1 squared equals 9.47 squared minus 15.9 squared. That's plus 15.9 squared minus 2 times 9.47 times 15.9 times cosine of C. And remember what we're solving for. We are solving for this. We want to get this all by itself. So first of all, I have to get this part all by itself so that I can divide the coefficient away. So I'm going to subtract over the 9.47 squared. I'm going to subtract over the 15.9 squared. And then lastly, I'm going to divide over the 2 times 9.47 times 15.9. And then I will have cosine C isolated and by itself. I'm now going to take cosine inverse of both sides. And when I do that, I have to very carefully take cosine inverse of all of this. I am using a classroom calculator, so I am going to do the denominator real quick. 9.47 times 15.9 times 2, and that is a negative 301.46 down here. So getting ready, I'm going to do 21.1 squared minus 9.47 squared minus 15.9 squared. If you're on a classroom calculator, we have to make sure we hit equals, divided by our 301.46, and we're going to do our cosine inverse, and we're going to get 109.8 degrees equaling C. So once we have that, if you remember in the last problem, I did law of cosines again with you. But normally at this point, I would go use the law of sines because I think it's a little quicker. So I could go for angle B or angle A. I don't know either one of them. I'm going to do B, so I'm going to write the 15.9 over sine of B equals this 21.1 over the sine of my 109.8 I just found. And now I'm going to have my 15.9. I'm going to multiply my sine of 109.8 over. I'm going to divide my 21.1 over. And I'm going to multiply my sine B to the other side to get it up and out of the denominator. So I'm going to put that all into my calculator. And then I'm going to do sine inverse of both sides to get the B by itself. And I'm going to get 45.2 degrees for my B. 45.2 degrees and 109.8 degrees. And then I'm going to subtract both of those from 180 to get 25 degrees for A. So I hope that this made sense. If you're having trouble putting it into your calculator or even understanding the algebra, please don't hesitate to come to office hours. Thank you.